Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about George R.R. Martin and books 6 and 7 of The Song of Ice and Fire, and why those books should absolutely not be written by George R.R. Martin or anyone else, right? Unless they are the most base novelization of what's on the show. Okay, so one, I am absolutely fascinated by this circumstance. So this is a mega level successful book series. The only book series in history, to my knowledge, that rivals Game of Thrones for the success of the book series, okay, modern book, is Harry Potter. Of course, I would say probably Lord of the Rings, certainly, is in the same series, is in the same vein, okay? So George R.R. Martin has written this incredibly successful book series with 5 books in it that is completely and utterly unfinished. At this point, it has been 6 years since book 5. 6 years, okay? And not only has it been 6 years, but there is no delivery date now, right? Now, here's my take on this, okay? One, I'm going to admit there was a time where I was pretty disappointed about this. It made me sad to even think about it. Now, I've come around to a new viewpoint on this entire subject, okay? All right, so I was sad because I had read all the books, all right? And then I had watched some of the show. The show, for me personally, is very difficult to watch because I don't have HBO. And there's nothing else on HBO that has incented me to buy it, so I don't really want to pay for HBO for one show, right? So my point is, I don't buy individual shows. Like, if a show comes on a streaming service I already own, I will certainly watch it, but and I don't have any streaming services that would legally allow me to watch Game of Thrones, so I don't, right? Okay. But I've seen through, I think, season 3. Yeah, I've seen up through season 3, right? Now, at this point, I do want to be clear that I'm telling you, this situation with Game of Thrones is completely unprecedented. This has never happened before in my life. By the way, so I have not seen any episodes past season 3. However, I'm fully aware of everything that's happening in the books and in the show. So one, I've read all the books, all 5 books. Then, for every single episode from season 4 all the way up to now, I have watched multiple recaps and incredibly in-depth, not just recaps, but incredibly in-depth reports of what has happened in each show. So and like the coverage on YouTube is absolutely astounding. So I'm fully aware of everything that happened, but I don't get to see it. Now, probably 2, 3, 4 years from now, when I can pick up the DVDs for at a garage sale for $5 or $10, I'll go ahead and get the rest of them. But until then, it's, I know what's happening, and that's what's important to me. I like to know the events, right? So here's why George R.R. Martin. So again, this has never happened. There's never been a book at the success level of Game of Thrones that was abandoned by the writer, and and I really believe at this point that is what has happened, right? Like, so just let's do a little bit of math, right? So if it's been 6 years since the last book, 6 times 365 is over 2,000, right? So George R.R. Martin could have wrote 1 page per day and finished this book 2 times over. 1 page per day, right? So there's something like, he could have written the book, thrown it in a fire, and completely rewritten it, and have already delivered it as a 700 as a 700 page, actually as an 800 page work. It could have been he could have wrote an 800 page novel, thrown it in a trash can, and burned it with oil, and then written it again and already delivered it, right? So something's happening, right? It's very clear that something's happening with George R. R. Martin. There's something blocking him from finishing the book, right? And that's okay. There's nothing. I really did want him to deliver this, but he chose not to. Okay, but he also chose to give permission to allow the show to go forward, right? Now, the show has accomplished something that has never, ever, ever been accomplished in the history of mankind, right? And that's a big old shut up to readers, right? I am one of the people who read the books, and then people would get excited because they watched the show and did not read the books, and they would go, oh my gosh, you know what's happening on Game of Thrones? And I'd be like, yes, I do know what happens happening on Game of Thrones. I read all the books, right? Like, and you can take a sense of pride and be like, oh, that's cute that you watched the show, but I read all the books, right? Well, now it's flipped the other way, so that we got to the point where all those, poor viewers who had to deal with our high horse, highbrow prejudice toward them, right, for just watching and not reading. Now the shoe's on the other foot. So the readers are like, oh, I better come over here and watch that show with you so I know what happens with Daenerys, right? And that's never happened. And actually, strangely, that has formed a community that is unprecedented, right? Where readers and viewers are on equal footing, right? And at this point, we're all enjoying one story each week. Now, you guys get to watch it normally on television like regular people. But me, I will, as soon as Monday comes or, right after they release it, I'll listen to 3 or 4 recaps of it and get a really strong sense of what happened. And I'll be like, ooh, I didn't know that happened with, Brienne. That's really cool, So it's good. It's really unique. Like it has turned out well. Now, how can that new sense of community where viewers and readers have been put together, how can that peace, how can that wonderful new reality be shattered? Here's how. If George R.R. Martin writes those books, right? Because George R.R. Martin, you could bet, is not going to do a novelization of the show, right? So what he's going to do is he's going to deliver his unique brand of Game of Thrones. That should absolutely not happen. And here's why. His books are no longer canon. His books are fan fiction, right? We have already been served an awesome version of what happens in Game of Thrones from people who were paid millions of dollars to write it and who took the source material very, very seriously and have presented the story, okay? And now we have one cohesive narrative that everybody understands what's happening, and there is not only peace, but there's real joyousness in the community. Everybody's happy, right? Well, if you bring out the books, you go right back to that old split, right? You have the high horse readers saying, oh, I read the book, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the viewers who are like, oh, wah, wah, wah. I didn't read the books. I just watched the silly show. And you split that community. And that's not cool, right? So to me, and the other issue is it doesn't matter what George R.R. Martin writes now. It doesn't matter. And the reason why is we already have the story. What he brings forward will be the most base, ridiculous fan fiction that's ever happened. And I know that sounds strange, but he brought this situation out. He had 6 years to write the book. He chose not to, which is completely legitimate. But I do really feel very strongly that it would be unfair for him to write those books now and release those books. And the reason why is it will break this peace, this détente that has been established between viewers and readers. And it will shatter a community that is unprecedented. We've never had a community, a fandom, where readers and viewers are on the same level of respect for the content and respect for each other, right? Because readers had to get off their high horse and come down and watch what happened in the story with the viewers, right? And so right now, I think Game of Thrones is the best possible thing. People who want to read can read the books, and then you finish the story by watching the show, right? Or you forget the books and you just watch the show, right? But George R.R. Martin has the possibility of bringing in a third possibility, which will be bad. It is not going to be good. It is going to be him bringing forward a book that says a bunch of stuff that disagrees with the show. There's absolutely no canon. And there's a huge disagreement, and then people are like, and then when people discuss what happened on Game of Thrones, you have to have this weird conversation of, oh, this happened in the book, this happened in the show, and then, you know, and it's really, it's not going to be good at all, right? So the best thing that George R.R. Martin can do is not release Winds of Winter. And also, as fans, I think it's important for us to understand that if he does, his content is fan fiction. The show is canon. And the reason why is the show went to a wider audience. The show did it first. The show did it harder. They did it without the full, they made a cake without, butter. Like, they did it, and they did it well, right? So we should respect the people who did the work to continue a story when they didn't have everything they needed. And I truly believe that at this point, the show is canon, and George R.R. Martin's books for Game of Thrones going forward are the most ridiculous fan fiction, and should just be piled on top of everything written else by other fanfic writers. Which I don't have a huge. I'm not a big fan fiction fan, right? So I guess that's my whole point, is that at this point, anything George R.R. Martin produces within Game of Thrones is fan fiction. Take care.